All right, we're back and delighted to have in the studio with us today Robin Fuller. She heads up the Grants Pass Pregnancy Care Center, and what a fired up lady in so many ways. And the work you do, thank you for all that you and your team do.
Thank you.
Day in and day out.
Thank you for your support.
Oh, yeah, we're delighted to be what we can to help. Well, listen, SB 490 went through the session, and it was quite threatening, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
What was it? What was it about?
Well, this is a Senate bill that was very carefully crafted. Some attorneys that I had look at it, or we had look at, were unconcerned at all. It looks very innocuous on the surface. But the way that it was written and some of the specific words were pretty difficult to define. So even Alliance Defending Freedom, they were waiting in the wings to help, and they're wonderful, but they were really concerned about this bill, written differently than any other bill has been written across the country. And what it would have done was bring the Oregon Health Authority basically in our business and in our organizations to have a say in what we do and how we do it.
Which is hypocritical as to what can happen inside an abortion clinic.
Yes, very much so.
So they wanted to overregulate you and almost deregulate them,
yes,
so to speak.
Well, they have no regulations.
Well, they have no regulations, nothing to dereg. So what happened?
Well, you know, we have a, this is our third go around. So back in 2007, the first time this happened, we had all the pregnancy centers came together, and we formed a coalition, which includes the Medford Center, you know, the Medford Pregnancy Center, and but we decided to work together and to talk amongst ourselves really about what would work best in our state. And working with the Oregon Right to Life and the Family Policy Council, and really understanding who our legislators are. Let's bring them into our centers. Let's make sure they know who we are and they trust who we are. And many of the Democratic senators, they like pregnancy centers and they like what we do, and they saw this legislation for what it was. It's just a bad bill and really unfair. So I think that's why it died, why it didn't come back up. But we know it's going to come again because Oregon is so critical to what they want to do nationwide because of the makeup of the legislature.
And if that could possibly swing in another direction in 214, maybe things would slow down. But it's possible they could sneak it in on a special session.
Yes, they could. It's sitting in the Ways and Means Committee. That's where it stayed, you know, was left. And my understanding, anything in the Ways and Means could come out at any time. Anytime.
So if they go into special session under the guise of PERS reform, while they're in these sessions, we know a lot of these bills can get attached. And I know that you and Gail and others will be certainly watching that carefully. So keep us posted. If we need to crank up the phones, we'll do it.
Yeah, we will. All
right. Well, anyway, some interesting things happening on the pro-life front across the country. We all watched with great interest what happened in Texas. And, of course, they filibustered it past the midnight hour, and they had to be carried over into a special session. But thank God for a very strong pro-life committed governor, Governor Perry, brought it back, and they got it through. But as easy as that sounds, that's not the case. I mean, there was some pretty tough moments during that debate, wasn't there?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone out there follows Abby Johnson. She's the she used to be a director of a Planned Parenthood, and came out of that after 8 years, and now she's really strongly pro-life. And she was there in Texas. She had been a director in Texas, and she was working very closely with everyone there. And she posted on Facebook regularly while she was there at the state legislature, and you may have seen some of the reports where the pro-life people were singing Amazing Grace, and then you would see the other side shouting Hail Satan. And then it was interesting that the Satanists got upset that they were using Satan's name that way. I don't know if you saw that.
I did,
you know, so I mean, it was interesting to watch, but it was towards the end of that special session, my understanding is they had to remove the pro-life people off-site for concern for their safety. It was really, really intense there. And the legislators, you know, I'm sure they're still somewhat concerned because there were a lot of death tweets and, you know, people. Well,
there was potential danger in just the way people conducted themselves and the threats of the just activity inside the building, which in itself was disgusting. But Doesn't that say something about, and I know this is, at the end of the day, this is a spiritual battle, but there's such an outcry for a spirit of death more than there is a spirit of life.
Well, when you figure that we've had, over 55 million abortions, and you have so many women and men who have been there, and my experience, what I've seen in over 18 years of doing this, is either people seek forgiveness and they become pro-life, or they remain pro-choice or pro-abortion just to justify where they've been and what they've done. It's all they can do. And the schizophrenic nature of saying that a child, you can end its life at 20 weeks, where just not even 2 weeks later or 1 week later, that child is saved. So is it a life or is it not? And that's,
right.
They're kind of at a point now of saying, yes, it is a life, but it just doesn't matter.
The majority of Texans want this bill.
Yes.
And I guess even on the national scale, it polled very high, above 50%. So is there
close to 60?
Is there a turn?
I'm just not sure. It's going to be interesting that, the way the media, the mainstream media spins things. They keep it focused on women, but with Gosnell happening and Leroy Carhart, wasn't he the other physician in Texas?
Yeah. Which, by the way, was grossly different than even Gosnell, as bad as his were.
Yes, worse than Gosnell.
Yeah.
And if the media would just really focus on that. To my understanding, the United States is the only country that has legalized late-term abortion. Other countries it happens, but we're the ones who, it's legal. There's nothing wrong with it. It's okay in every state of the nation, and at the very least there should be some limits. Now that life at 20 weeks is no less a life than it is 2 days after conception in my mind, but we need to at least start with some limitations somewhere, and the concern is if we even have any kind of limitations at all, that it's going to take that right away from women. So.
Now, I understand they're fearing in the Senate if it comes to the Senate because supposedly Harry Reid, who's a Democrat from Nevada, says he's pro-life. And if he was presented with the bill that no abortion after 20 weeks, it may be the test of his potential political career.
Yeah. There's a lot riding on it. It'll be really interesting to see what happens.
That's wonderful. Well, listen, thank you again for what you're doing, and thank you for being on top of SB 490. It still could pop up, so we're going to keep an eye on that.
Yes, it could.
And thank you for all that you guys are doing over there with the Grants Pass pregnancy.
We keep doing what we can, one life at a time.
One life at a time. Well, that's what it's all about.
Yes,
thank you, sweetheart. All right,
thank you.
Soon. We'll be right back.